this is my cafe. This is where I wake up in the morning. I have my first coffee. I talk on the phone. I do my meetings. And a couple of years ago, there was a terrible bomb explosion in this cafe, and I felt awful. And it's one of the most serious bomb attacks that we had in Jerusalem. And it took me about a year to come back here and to have my coffee.
And I was led to understand that the place basically looks like how it was.
Almost the same, yeah.
Very much on purpose, just to say, we're coming back, you know.
Life goes on.
Yeah, life goes on, which is a very powerful statement to make, as horrible as the events were. And to look at that photo I saw of this place, what more do you need to see? Like, that can't ever happen again anywhere in the world.
I see it as a dead end, because from our part and also from the Palestinian part, there is some kind of, something is holding it back. But at the moment, as an Israeli, the only thing that I have left to do is do things on my own. That's the best I can do.
The Israel experience is, you know, you walk up the street where Christ dragged his cross, and 45 minutes later, you're sitting in a cafe that got blown up by some guy with an idea, and it all kind of goes back to that piece of property. It's just, it's mad.
I'm almost done with you. You wonderful Israeli people, you have such patience with me. I want to tell you this quick thing that I do a lot. It's the reason why I was in Djibouti, Africa on Christmas Day. About 3.5 years ago, I got a phone call at my office from a woman who represents an organization in America called the USO, the United Services Organization. And the USO, some of you, if you've ever seen old black and white footage of Bob Hope on stage in front of a bunch of soldiers, that was the USO. The USO is still alive and well. Joan Jett does USO tours, Kid Rock, all kinds of comedians go out and entertain the troops no matter where they are on the behalf of the USO, a non-governmental organization that gets all their money from contributions. They called me and they said, Henry, we got your number from your manager. He said it was okay to call. I said, okay, that's how usually calls come in because no one really can find me otherwise. So I'm a misanthrope. It's cool. And so I said, what do you want with me? They said, we want to know if you want to go out and tour for the USO and entertain the troops. I said, do you have any idea who you're talking to? And they said, well, no, not exactly. All we know is we put up sign-up sheets at every base all over the world and say, if you could have 10 people here tomorrow, who would they be? And your name keeps popping up. You're wildly popular with soldiers. That's why we found you. But we don't know exactly what it is you do. I said, how about I send you some of my DVDs and talking CDs, and you can see, A, how completely unrestrained my mouth is, and what open, snarling, completely unrestrained contempt, hatred, and fury I have for the Bush administration and all their war criminal cronies who are destroying lives everywhere. And you see, if you want to put me in the middle of nowhere with a bunch of armed men and women who very well could have voted for this guy and will hate my guts and shoot me in the face, get back to me. She got back to me after she watched and listened, and she said, my goodness, you have a potty mouth, which I learned all those words from my mother, actually. She could curse a good blue streak, Iris could. In any case, she said, well, we like you anyway, so you want to be part of the USO? I said, yes. So why would I say yes to that? Well, because I unconditionally like the soldiers. They go where they're told. They don't dictate policy. They just go where they're told. The people I want to word with are people like Paul Wolfowitz and Condoleezza Rice and Dick Cheney and well, not the president. He's not really attending, is he? But the rest of them, you want them to answer some real questions, like what's up with that pre-war intelligence? Why are you going there? Why are you doing this? Why is the CEO of Halliburton making a personal profit of $150 million of taxpayers' dollars? How can you spend money dipped in blood of young men and women who come back dead? How can you do that? Very easily. I just fold the money and put it in my truck and take it to the bank. And so I said, yeah, I like the soldiers, though. I'll go, and we'll see what happens. And so I do these tours because I learn a lot that I'm not seeing on the news. I meet some of the bravest, most amazing young people ever. And I'm I'm doing something good. And it sounds really messed up, but this is how I protest the war. I'm basically sweeping up after George W. Bush and his fake war that's killing all these beautiful kids and all these Iraqis and all these people everywhere. I'm coming in and doing the best I can. Basically putting Band-Aids on shotgun wounds is what I'm doing. And so of all of this stuff I do, the hardest thing I do is in America. I have volunteered with the USO to visit wounded soldiers at the hospitals in the Washington, D.C. area, the Bethesda Naval Medical Hospital and the Walter Reed Army Medical Hospital. The first time I did it, I'm standing outside the door of a young man who requested my presence. And I said, okay, so what am I dealing with when I go through the door? And they said, well, the soldiers like to tell you about their injuries, so it's okay to say, how did that happen? They love to tell the story. And the guy's name is something, something. He's in there with his mother. I said, okay, well, what's the injury? He said, sir, we don't know. All we know is he's injured. He requested a visit. Are you ready? I said, well, no, I have another. She just opened the door and shoved me in. And you just have to make up what you're going to say. You have to assess the situation, go, okay, I'm going to do this. And you can't get it wrong, because otherwise you could really bum some people out. So I walk and I'm shoved into this door, my first person, and I see a guy sitting in bed. His arm is in a cast, but it's more than like a broken arm. It's like there's pins and there's wires and there's strings that's kind of floating in space. And it looks like a very painful thing. So I said, hey, man, I'm Henry. And he said, I'm so-and-so. I said, great, that's the mom. Meet the mom. How do you do, ma'am? So I said, hey, man, what happened? And he said, well, I'm not too sure. We got hit with something. I flew through the air and landed and got up, and I looked down, and I saw my arm on the ground. No one has ever said that to me in my life. I was like, with all due respect, fuck. He's like, no kidding. I said, then what did you do? He said, I walked over and picked it up. And then he finished that, and he said, I recognized it. And I have no reason to lie to this guy. I went, stop tape. Do you realize how insane what you just said was? He went, yeah, that is pretty weird. I go, when have you ever had to recognize your own arm? Line up the arms, please. Sir, do you recognize any of those arms? Number 6, that's mine. And so he picked up his own arm, and I said, then what'd you do? He goes, I don't know. I passed out, and I woke up here. So I guess he started bleeding, and he woke up in Walter Reed. They've reattached the arm. And I looked down at his legs. He had these amazing scars on his legs, both the same one on either side. And I go, what's that? And he said, it's they pull nerve bundles from each leg, and they put them in my arm, hoping for mobility and sensation. And I said, are you going to play golf again? And he said, well, we'll know when I do physical therapy. And so I said, well, I think you're going to be fine. You'll be fencing by spring. And so we said goodbye, and I come out, and she goes, okay, how was that? I said, that was really intense. She goes, okay, are you ready for the next one? I went, no. She goes, great, here we go. And so you go room after room after room, and you see the power and efficiency of an improvised explosive device. The shrapnel just really, it does its thing. The guts tend to stay intact because of the vests, but the arms and legs just seem to just go right off them. I come out of these hospitals with an anger that's so huge and so clear. I don't know what to do with it. It's like trying to take the Hindenburg and put it in your back pocket. It won't fit. I'm like, because what do? Who do you write a letter to? What do? Grab the president, like shake him by his lapels? Do you see what you did? It's like leading a dog back to the crap it took in the corner. Look at that. And the dog goes, yeah, I know, it's mine. What? And if you said to any of these masters of war, these awful people, look what you're doing to these kids. They kind of go like, there's Islamo-fascists all over the world. We have to fight them there, so we don't have to fight them here. And we don't want the smoking gun to turn into a mushroom cloud. I'm like, I'm so sick of this shit. So I keep signing up for more and more and more visits. And I did one recently where I was walking down the hallway with my clipboard and all the names I have to see. And a woman comes out of a room. And she says, excuse me, you look familiar. I said, moi? Oui. She said, come here. And I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, look at this photo. And I go into this little hospital room, and I look up on the wall, and there's a photo of me standing next to a soldier. And I said, yep, that's me, short, gray, and angry. And the guy I'm standing next to is a big, handsome hunk of a man. And I said, is that the guy in the picture? And there's a guy in a hospital bed in the semi-fetal position. He's got a diaper on. His hands are gnarled. One eye's looking that way, one eye's looking that way, and he's drooling. She said, yep, that's him. I said,